Well, there are a lot of occasions when we speak to testers and they share their opinions candidly. And there is a show on YouTube called Tester Speak, which brings out those moments where testers share their journeys in a candid manner. Welcome to the Test Chat YouTube channel with your host Brijesh Dev, and you're watching Tester Speak Season 2. Today, my guest is someone who I know for a little bit of time, but what sparked my interest in her journey was her vocal attitude, and she likes to speak out, and that is something that really drew my attention to the work that she's been doing. She's an active member of the Test Chat community and is participating in discussions and sharing her views pretty regularly. So I thought it is time that we bring her to the stage and talk to her. So without any further delay, I would like to welcome Rupsha Ghosh. Welcome, Rupsha.
Yeah, hi everyone. Hi Brijesh.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. So, Rupsha, how did you get into testing?
I got into testing after I joined no, no, since I joined my first organization as a trainee. So if people from there are watching this video, they will actually recognize me obviously. So I got there as a trainee. So I spent some time there as a trainee, and then after that, gradually I got into the QA department from there only. So that's how it began.
Okay, and tell us a little bit about your journey. I mean, how did you get into your graduation and then the
Okay.
steps? Yeah.
Okay, so it's not a very long journey up till now. So it's only in 2017 that I graduated, and I was a BTech in Electronics and Communication Engineering. So after that, I joined the first organization, which I told I joined as a trainee. So actually, I spent a few months initially over there in one of the development teams, but I had to leave that. I mean, because of my personal interest, I had to leave that, and also was having some problems, so I had to leave it. So and then I joined the QA, and from there I have been into QA. I have liked doing the work. I've learned many things, and I've I have known some people. I'll not say like many people I've known, but I've known some people who have liked my work, and they have recognized me as well. And so after that, it's only the second company that I am working for right now. So which I came in 2020 last year. So I'm here. So here it's like a part in a big community because it's a little big organization. So yeah, I'm here. I'm still learning, and it will still continue in the years to come because so the first thing, because one thing I believe is that learning never stops, and also I'm still quite young, and there are lots and lots and lots of things to learn and upskill and those things. So
Great.
that's
So one thing that I noticed is that you've also done mm, your BTech in Electronics and Communication, because I also have the same degree. You know,
okay.
my engineering is also was in electronics and communication. So curious question, from electronics and communication into IT, how come?
And because there was not the most honest answer is there was no other job available. Really, because I was interviewing into various companies, and this company just happened to select me, so the transition happened.
I like that. I like that honest answer. So you've been working for a good part of 4 years now, and so from the time that you joined the industry till till now, um, what kind of evolution have you seen in the testers? Have you seen any big changes happening?
Have you seen things change?
Mm, yes. So one big change was that, so when I joined the testing team first, it was like, okay, so testers don't code much. They only test the stuff, and that is like an easy job. So that is the easy part to do. And so with that mindset, maybe I had joined now. So that was about like more than 3 years back. So that time it was like that, but then after getting into the details, now test automation and then shift left, this that all these things, agile, then safe, agile, lean, etc., all these things, maybe it was there that time also, but I wasn't at all aware of it, or maybe it was not known as such in the industry, along with things like AI/ML as well. Now AI/ML is one subject in itself, but that is also being used in testing now, is what I can see nowadays. So these things, at least this AI/ML part was not there, I think, for that time. And test automation was there, obviously, because people were there who used to automate stuff, but then probably the need to do that was not so much back then. Now why I am saying it a need is because it's not that manual testing is dying or those things. No, I'm not saying, like, it's not my opinion, but the market demands testers to be like Madurga kind of a thing, because they need to know like 10 12 things at the same time. So
Yeah.
it's very market driven, actually.
Yeah. No, absolutely right. I quite agree with you. Well, Agile has existed for quite a while, so it's I kind of agree with you that the awareness levels a few years ago was not as much as it is now. So probably that's why you feel that okay, it was not that prominent. Now it is prominent. Now people are
Hmm.
required to learn about agile, DevOps, automation. Now going into low code, no code, AI,
Hmm.
ML, and and you're absolutely right that it is market driven. Now, so we've seen the rise of these technologies, and there is a lot of focus on the tools side of things. Every day some new tool is coming. What are your thoughts on these tools and the way people are chasing these tools? What do you have to say about it?
So the only what I mean, I have to think about it honestly, because the tools, like, there are like a never-ending number of tools. So today there are 10 tools. Tomorrow, this out of this 10, maybe 5 will be deprecated, and then 10 more will come. So what I believe is that instead of chasing behind the tools without getting the fundamentals strong, now fundamentals as in the concept what the tool is using, or maybe one or two programming languages. So these kind of basics, if they are strong, so one person who knows one tool can easily shift to another tool. But if the opposite is right, that he is only learning the usage of the tool, that okay, this is there, if I click this happens, and if I drag there, that happens. So in that case, he will not be able to shift easily to another tool, and that learning curve will become a very steep one in that case.
Mhm.
So this is my view. So what I try to do is, like, probably, I mean, I try to do, I'm not sure how much I am able to do, but I try to do is, I try to get the fundamentals strong. Now, if that means that it is taking a little more time for me to grasp the tool, or maybe come up to the expected speed to work with that tool, but still it's okay, because I mean, I am getting the fundamentals strong. So that's what I believe.
I think that's a key piece of advice for people getting into things like not just automation, into testing or into anything for that matter.
Anything. Yes.
Yeah, so get your fundamentals right. So that is a great message, Upsha. Thank you for that. I,
Thank
you
you.
know, the problem is that, um, and I spoke about it in a recent conference, is that there is so much focus on these tools and modern technology, and there is a perception that okay, that is what is going to be the future of testing. However, if you go and interview candidates from a hiring manager's perspective, and you will see so many senior leaders in the testing space talking about it all the time, that when they hire testers and when they ask them basic questions on testing, for example, test design, they don't get the answers that are required because everybody wants to automate. Okay? Everybody wants to be in that space where,
Automation pool, yes.
yeah. So uh, it creates a kind of an atmosphere where the hiring manager does not get enough confidence to hire somebody, and there is always this mindset that this guy or girl only wants to automate. They don't want to focus on testing, and they say, oh, we won't do manual testing. It's not manual testing, it's just testing. You have to think about a strategy, think about a plan, think about the risks, look at the design, but you don't get people. So how do you, in your opinion, how do you counter this situation?
So one thing I would very much like to say in this situation is that, so on one hand you are saying that the hiring managers are not finding people who are basically good in testing. Now testing is not equals to automation.
Correct.
We can automate everything. We can automate, like, how do I say? So if I buy a robot, that robot can go and buy vegetables for me from the supermarket also. So that is also kind of an automation. So now, so hiring managers are not finding people who are good at testing. So they will test and then automate the test cases. So testing steps they will automate. So this kind of people. But then somewhere I also believe that 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 there might be people who are good at the basics of testing. They are trying to get into the automation, not just because like for the hype of it, but also to upskill oneself, gain something from it, and also to help the organization grow. But then those people get rejected at some point or the other. So those people get rejected, and most of the times it is because of the coding interview. Now coding interview at this stage is, at least at the I mean, before, like, if you are trying to be an architect or that kind of a level, I don't think there is that much of coding which is not available in the internet. So I'm not really like it doesn't get like I don't understand why these coding interviews become so much important, at least for a tester, because ultimately what you are going to do is already done by something, and yeah, some little bit of concepts if you have, and if you know what to search and where to search, you can still do the task. But
Right.
this kind of confidence the hiring managers do not have, or maybe they have relatively better candidates who have probably higher amount of relevant experience, so they get hired, and people like such kind of people get behind. So that's
I,
the
I
story. So
I think that's a fair judgment, and that is also true. What you said is also true, that somewhere they have to find the right mix, and that's why people
yes,
who are able to um, mm, test better, even if they can code better, somehow get picked up, and people who can test better and still are learning automation get rejected. Well, that's also true. So the reason why I brought up this is because in a recent conference that I attended, you know there were 50 plus topics being spoken about, and out of which there were 49 topics talking about technology and tools and there was none on testing, none, and it was a testing conference. Okay, and so this is what is happening. Okay, we get so much hyped, or we go with the flow saying, oh, AI ML, how is it going to change testing, or how is it going to change the life of testers? Let's focus on that. And there are 2 3 talks on that, and then suddenly somebody brings a new tool. Okay, let's talk about this tool and how this is changing. So that is what uh, gives me a little bit of a pain, because I am a hardcore tester by heart, and I believe that if you have that mindset that okay, you can test well, then automation becomes very easy for you. Okay.
yes, you just have to code the steps. I mean, you get a programming language, you get a proper framework, and you just write some lines of code to do what you are trying to do manually, just to do.
Exactly. And when we say automation, it is not just limited to writing a few test cases. For example, you are preparing an experiment where you need tons and tons of test data. Okay, what do? You use automation to generate that. You cannot do it sitting by yourself one by one taking records. If you want millions of records, it will take you, a month or so to get those millions of
Only to
records.
generate. Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
so
That's yeah.
you can use automation there, right? So this is something that people don't understand, and that is the difficulty, that test automation, when people talk about it, it is limited to conversion of test cases from manual to automation. No, that's not true. There is a lot that can be done with automation, and that's that. I don't know how to get this across to a lot of people, but I still see people, struggling with this, and hopefully someday people will realize that there's more to automation than just test cases part of it. But I completely agree with whatever you said, and I like the different perspective you bring in on these topics. So
Yeah, but yeah, so why I am able to bring these perspectives is because I'm a first-hand witness for this kind of situations. That's why.
that is good. So uh, if I am preparing for an interview, okay, and say I have like similar range of experience, 3 to 5 years, which falls in, you fall in the same bracket. So what would be your advice to me? How should I approach the testing interview?
Well, that's a tricky thing to answer. So, okay, so for a testing interview, I would say that again, get your testing basics correct. Now, what is like how to write a test plan, how do you estimate the those requirements, and then how to read requirements, then how will you know the application better? Now, better as in like knowing the application inside out, so that I mean, like before jumping into testing and automating, just know the application first. Test, I mean, try out various combinations. So in many places you might find the application crashing, or it does not do anything because the code is not there. Just try to explore as many areas as you can, so that you get to know the application better, so that when next time you are testing something, you get to know your test cases better. Because if you know that if I'm changing in one place, you will know that okay, this place might be affecting 10 other places, but if you do not know the application, you will never get to know that. So this will have an impact when it is finally into the production. So let's say you do not know, I mean, you have been testing a feature on a product, and you do not know where and all this feature might have affected. So out of the 10 areas which it might have affected, you tested only 2 because you knew about only those 2. Now those 8 areas, out of those 8 areas, 6 areas have got a problem. So those problem will give you midnighters later in the day, like later in the month when they are falling in the customer's hands. And so this is one advice. And then there are various like then obviously one thing is how you communicate to people. Because as testers, we are finding faults not in other people. We are finding fault in what they have built, or in maybe what they have written a code. And people are prone to mistake, like prone to make mistakes. That is okay, but it is human nature to take things personally. Okay, so if someone tells me today that I have written a bad essay, I will obviously feel bad. But he is not. But that person is not telling that I am bad. My essay is somehow bad. Like that, it becomes personal. So testers should have that communication also to get the message across clearly, that okay, you are having an issue in this particular area, so this is the place where the issue is, this is how you can reproduce it, and this is probably how you can fix it, if you are aware of like how you can do that. And also yeah, keeping evidences is like number one thing we have to do, like evidences as in whatever you do. Because sometimes what happens is, uh, because of environment issues or something is happening, like something is working in the morning and it doesn't work in the evening. So that kind of a, so to avoid that kind of a situation, please keep a record of what you are doing. At least when you are like testing or closing a user story, please keep a record, as in screenshot, video recording, like various modes are there nowadays. Please keep a recording to save yourself kind of a situation like that. So these things, and then yes, obviously be a little proactive in learning. Now learning as in like, yeah, testing methodology and all those things are okay, and also be a little technical, because I mean, testing, like testers are not like expected to code and all, I mean to sit and write applications. Yeah, for framework development it is obviously one thing, but other than that, at least get to know how the code works maybe, or how your application works. Yes, I'm not saying the low level designing, the class methods and not all those things, at least the high level architecture, so that how those components integrate, all those things.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think those are some very good points. So I want to get a little deeper into this conversation. Now you mentioned communication. Um, we all know the importance of having good communication skills. And probably communication skills are the fundamental skills that is required, fundamental skill that testers require to progress in their career and to do a good job basically. So how can I improve, or how can I get better at communication skills?
Talk with
What?
people, talk with people, get to understand, like I mean, communication is not doing something on your own. Communication is not like you will write to self or like that. Communication is basically, by definition, is how you are, like, you are able to get your thoughts across to other people. So the
Right.
only way to do that better is to obviously talk to people and get to know, like, okay, if I say this, most of the people will maybe I mean, intercept it in a particular way, so let me mold it in a different way and put that across. So communication comes obviously from communicating with people, but then it becomes a little bit of a, not a little bit, like quite a problem, quite a big problem for the introvert people. So for the introvert people, at least I would say, like please, uh, I mean, try to reach out to people if you can, or else at least hear people talking. I mean, not like when they're talking personal stuff, go and just over here. No, no, not like that. But at least being in conferences, or hearing such, I mean, various webinars, interviews, etc. So that way they can do, and also reading books, because like that will build up your vocabulary, way of talking. So wording kind of things comes from obviously those uh, reading books.
And one of the most important things is, of course, or one of the very nice things that people can do is to write. If they can't talk, at least
Right.
they,
Yes.
and express their thoughts. Now, has it ever happened that you've tried to convey something to a developer, and they've not understood your point of view, and the conversation has gone in some other direction?
Um,
Or
Not
you've
with,
you've had a bad fight with a developer?
no, no,
No,
no, not with,
it's not a bug.
not. I know that how bad enemies can be testers and developers, and there are various shows and memes for like in this topic. But fortunately for me, fortunately, I don't know. I will call it fortunately only, because I've not gotten to fight with any people for that matter, and also like people misinterpreting me. So one thing I would say is, because I mean, I don't try to directly go and blame the person, that okay, see, you have done this mistake, you have to correct this. No, I don't do that. I have never done that, and I don't try to do that. And previously also, there were developers who in fact helped me understand that okay, you are getting this issue, so maybe this is not what you're trying to say, maybe this is what you're trying to say. So this I'm talking when I was very junior, like about 3 years back. So that time, so they even taught me, like, you have to see like this, tell us like this, then we will understand, give us this thing. So these things, I mean, if you are also open to feedback and open to hear something, then people will not get mad on you. So that is how you communicate. So it's entirely the communication process.
Absolutely. I mean, it's you being receptive to feedback, you being open to listen to their point of view and bring a change in yourself plays a very important part. And
Obviously.
and one of the biggest bottlenecks in communication is a very small word, a three-letter word called ego. And because some people get so easily offended And when somebody is giving them a feedback, and they're like, oh, you know what? He's pointing at my code. He's pointing at me. Or if you tell a tester, no, this is
Not a bug.
not a bug, or you probably need to read the specs. Okay, you don't have clarity about the functionality or something. I have seen people getting really mad and annoyed. It's like, how come I've spoken like, somebody's telling me that, I've been hired for this role and I'm doing whatever, blah 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 blah. It is not about you. It is about
The product that you're trying to build.
so,
Nothing is like,
so it has happened to me, and that's why because I tried to say something to a developer. In fact, in my testing team, I tried to convey and give some feedback because I was looking at the defects, and I realized that probably there is a bit of a technical knowledge gap somewhere. Okay, the functionality is not clear. Says, sit, have conversations. And you made a very good point, and I want to take that further. You spoke about talking to developers, talk to architects, collaborating. How does that help you? What value are you adding in your testing if you're talking to developers and architects?
because I get to know how the system works. Because I mean, without knowing how the system works, I cannot test it properly. So now there is a common perception that developers and testers should not speak to each other. They should just sit in two different poles and then do their task. But that, I believe, is not a very, I'm not going into it is correct or like improper, or is it proper. No, I'm not going to that discussion. I'm just saying it sometimes helps. I mean, sometimes the developers may even distract us from the bug and then try to make us understand the wrong thing, which is ultimately wrong. So when we come back and think that, okay, what did he make me understand, this is basically wrong. So that kind of judgment, if you have inside you, and that consciousness, if you have inside you, and then you talk to developers, then you only learn about the system. That's all. You learn about the system. You probably learn about some new technologies, or maybe some little bit of thing. I mean, developers are working more on the technology in general, not saying all of them. In general, they are working more on technology than the testers. So if a developer and a tester can be friend, it can be like, it should be a better I mean, a mutual thing between them, because because the developers can also learn from the testers point of view that, okay, these are the things that normally they are going to check, that some edge cases, some these are this things, that thing, so those they can implement in their code without coming back as defects.
Absolutely, and I see that a great opportunity as So when you are, as a tester, when you are making your test plan, when you're making your test strategy, involve the developers, talk to them. You say, okay, you know what? In the application, these are the areas where I think there is a majority of risks. What do you think? Do you also have the same opinion, or do you see risks in other areas? Because when you have such a dialogue with them, then they'll be interested to know what exactly you're looking for, and they
Exactly.
will try to implement it in their code. Also,
Exactly.
go and ask if you go and ask your developer, what kind of a test are you writing? Can I help you in
Hmm.
your test?
Unit test, etc., whatever.
Yeah, I don't think they will say no to it. Okay,
Yeah,
I
obviously.
my
Why will
career,
this?
I have not come across a single developer whom I have approached and I've told him, what are you trying to build and test? Can I help you with this? Can I help you test it better? Every time they have said yes.
Yeah, why will they say no? Even they don't get like to get defects, because their KPIs also get down. So obviously they will try to talk with the tester first and get the thing correct at the first.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's a very good point you made, Rupsha. I think these are some very minute things that testers sometimes overlook. But if they pay a little attention to communication, collaboration, things and their life will become so easy. Now, in apart from communication, collaboration, have you been in a challenging situation in your project sometime, either technically or in terms of understanding the technology stack or the product itself as to why is it being built. Have you been in that kind of situation where there has been a little
Yes,
bit?
yes,
So
yes,
how did
yes,
you
yes. I have. Yeah, so that was just the way, like you said, that I don't know why this product is being built, or I don't know any of the technology that is being used. So how do I test the thing? So everything was like like now I can think back in days. So that was when I joined this current organization in the beginning days. So that the first application that I was deployed to was something totally different from the ones which I've been normally used to. So I could not see anything on the screen. So I don't know what is happening. I don't know the technology stack. So everything was like a nightmare for me at that time. And I used to have some crying sessions also on my phone that okay, I won't be there in this company. They're going to kick me out. Like that kind of things were always going on inside my head. But then there were supportive people in this company uh, who helped me like whenever I had any doubt. I used to ask them, probably bother them also by asking too many questions. But then, so little by little, and also doing the things on my own, doing a little bit like little things on my own, and then trying to understand the technology. Okay, even if I so okay, so if it is using probably say a messaging queue system, so I do not have to know an entire messaging queue service from beginning to end. I just have to know what it does and how it can help in my system, and how is it being used in my system. That should be enough for me now. So those
correct?
kind of ideas I got, and I tried to implement it like that. So which helped me, if I put it point wise objectively, the things which helped me was like asking questions and trying to get to know what is going on, what is happening, what they are trying to build, how they are trying to build these kind of questions, and doing a little bit of self research, and knowing how much knowing is enough is also like a skill. So that kind of a thing, because so that portion I had to take. And yeah, so these are mainly like 2 3 things which helped at that point.
I think that's a very important point that you mentioned. Knowing how much is
How
should
much
I
to
know.
know?
There was this interesting conversation in the test chat Telegram group a few days ago, where people were talking about knowledge, and thankfully we have James and Michael in the group, and James has a lot of things to say about knowledge, and in their program as well, in the RST program, they specifically talk about explicit knowledge and tacit knowledge, and how it is important and how it flows. So obviously there are things that we know, there are things that we don't know, there are things that we know that we don't know, and there are things that we don't know that we don't know,
You don't know. Yes.
right?
Yes.
So there are you know the
All sorts of things.
yeah, the total knowledge falls in all these four categories. And if you are smart enough, you will understand that okay, there may be something which I don't know if I need it or not, or if that is required or not. And even if I need it, how much of it is enough for me to
Yes.
proceed?
Yes.
Okay,
Hmm.
sometimes people spend an awful lot of time in learning stuff and ignoring, okay, it's already time for me to put it to use, rather than keep on going to, we can overdo things also. So that's a very
Hmm.
important aspect that you brought. So that brings me to another thought. Since we are talking about knowledge and knowledge management and things like that, okay, documentation.
Yes.
Yeah. So documentation, we're talking about fast-paced development. We're talking about agile. We're talking about DevOps. You know,
Hmm.
product increment going in every 2 weeks. So, how important is it for a tester to have good documentation, or you think it's okay to have an okay sort of a document, or no document? What is it that you feel?
I believe it is somewhere in between, because so somewhere in between. So I'll try to give it by example. So now if I spend so in I mean, so if I go by the agile or the lean method definition, by essence it says about reducing of waste. So now documentation is a waste if I do a documentation and it does not serve a purpose later in time. So if I spend around 3-4 days writing test cases with like absolutely proper grammar and then like high class vocabulary and everything, then that becomes a waste. A test case is going to help me and maybe my fellow testers. So a line or a two or maybe 3-4 lines should be enough, like what the test is about and what it should give me. I don't need to write an like a Harvard essay over there. It's absolutely unnecessary, so that becomes like a waste. So that is one thing. But yeah, obviously now if I do not store the test result, so test result is one kind of a documentation, test result, and especially for the NFRs now, performance reports, security reports, all those things. So these kind of documentation are absolute must, because these go further in the process. Like the customer normally wants to see these things because these things actually matter to them, because they want to see how their performance work I mean sorry, how their system performs, or how secure the system is, because they are going to store their customer data in their system. So these things are absolute must. And release notes, etc., documenting also, these things need not be like a full Shakespearean essays or like that, but at least give the proper thing. I mean, what all features are going to be there, how much of it had been tested, on which platforms it has been certified against, so that the whoever is looking at the at such a release report or maybe at a test report gets to understand what we are trying to say. That I mean if it does not understand, and okay, it should also be in a well formatted way, but we should not spend around that. Like we can have a basic format for that and we can follow the same format for that, and that can go in every. But so that's why I said like it's a midway. It's not like we don't need anything. If like everything will just like everyone, all the customers can read our heads and read our minds and understand everything from that. So no, that is not. And also we no, do not need like the ghost of Shakespeare on us to write essays like that, somewhere in between.
Yeah, so I completely agree with you, and that's why, one of the latest articles that I wrote was on test cases and why we don't need them. And by that, what I meant was you don't need you don't need those essay type test cases, something that is prescribed in ISTQB. If you look at ISTQB, they say, okay, you have got to have test steps and specifications, and you go into those details. In 2 weeks, how much can you write? Okay,
Obviously.
if you have got a 2 weeks window to test, will you spend all
Yes.
your 2 weeks in writing that or actually testing?
Obviously not. Obviously not. So what I will do is, in that case, I will spend probably the first day in just just scripting all the test cases, all the possible scenarios which are coming inside, like coming at that point of time. I'll just script them down, maybe in a line or two or 3-4 lines. Just it is enough, as in like proper English, so that I can understand it later and someone who reads can understand it later, like that. And then I'll start the testing. And what happens in most of the cases is that while writing the test cases also, or while getting the requirement also, there are still things which we miss out, which comes in our mind when we actually start testing. So okay, I have tested this, let me add it in my test report, that okay, these are the things which have been tested. So like that way it goes. It's not like everything has to be at first and only we have to stick to that and then only do it. Like anything beyond that is like god knows what. No, not like that at all.
Another thing is, how do we know that the requirements that are given to us are complete and accurate,
Yeah.
right?
So yes. So for that also we have to talk to people. I mean, obviously, like requirement analysis is a big and needed skill which goes into probably resume of every tester. Requirement reading, requirement analysis, this kind of things, and also it's there in my resume as well. I will not disagree. So these kind of, I mean, if at all the requirement is clear or not, if there is any missing pieces, because a requirement is also being given by a human, so that human can also make errors. So if everyone on the team, it's not just the testers who are going to read the story and do the things. So developers, testers, everyone can read, should actually read the story, put involve their thought process into the requirement, and then try to see if there are any missing pieces, or if something which is written can be done in a better way. So these things can then be decided on the as a team, as a whole team, and then it can or cannot be implemented. And also most of the things, like I said, many things, like I said, comes into picture when we actually start building or we start testing the product.
Yeah.
So it goes hand in hand.
Yes. So you know, the requirements analysis, not much attention is actually paid into that because people are focused on tangible outputs like test cases, test plan, and things like that. And before, even before requirements analysis, okay, probably the product owner is doing that. Probably the product owner is looking at the customer's need analysis, okay, analyzing
Hmm.
what the customer needs. So it is important that when the requirements comes to you, you get it validated with the product owner. Is this
Obviously.
enough? Is this enough, or you need more? Or is this accurate enough? Is all the information correct or not? Get that validated. Start testing the requirement itself, right?
Obviously. Hmm.
Before before you jump into writing test cases and building those huge Excel sheets or whatever you're doing, it's, it's important that testers look at that. Um,
Yes.
okay, all right. So those are some very insightful responses from you, Ruksha. Thank you. So I want to take this in a totally different direction now. Now, we spoke about agile. Okay, we spoke about uh, agile and DevOps and things like that. Do you still, do you really feel that people or organizations understand agile that well, or is it just doing it for the sake of it?
So I mean, with the little experience, so in that I will, so maybe I'm not the very good person to comment on that because I've not had that much of experience, like going into 7 8
From
organizations
your
and then
perspective,
commenting. From my perspective, it's not always that they are actually implementing agile or they are able to, like, even if that is like the plan is there and roadmap is there, maybe because of time or maybe because of budget issues, resource issues, or whatever, like whatever that can be the reason, they are not probably able to implement it. So it might be that maybe the leadership team has the idea of what it is and how to do that, but because of such issues it does not get done, is what I think. But then in small proportions it is somewhat there, but in bigger portion maybe it's not there. So, and again, agile or lean or whatever we say, it's not one person's activity to do that. So everyone has to have an idea first of what agile is, what we are trying to do with agile. Is it just a dictionary word, or is there any essence to it, or how it, like, what it actually conveys? So these kind of training sessions, and then also the people who are actually doing the work. Now it's not the leadership only who does the work. The work done gets done by the people subordinate to the leadership, like leadership team or management team will oversee the rest of the thing and oversee the bigger picture, but doing the small groundwork is done by the, like, the subordinate people. So even each one of them has to know first what is agile, then only everything can be done, because if they don't know what is agile, they will just do what their, like, what comes into their mind. So it's
right, right. No, the
like
reason
that.
why I asked this question is a lot of times when we see failures in projects, you know, or testers not being able to finish their work in time, so a tester's efficiency is questioned. Seldom is the
Hmm.
process taken into account. So what are you doing in terms of process? What is your way of working? If you
Hmm.
say it's agile, then what kind of agile is it? Okay. Are you going by the book, or you have a customized version of it? Okay, it is open enough for interpretation. The way you look at agile, the way I look at it may not be the same as somebody else looking at it. There may be certain parts of the process which I might want to tweak according to my team size and my needs and things. Then, similarly, if somebody says, okay, we are trying to implement agile and our chosen framework is Scrum.
Hmm.
Now, if you just do something like a daily stand up or or maybe a sprint planning meeting, it
Yes.
does not make your team a scrum team. You need to follow certain other fundamentals as well,
Aspects as well. Yes.
right? So there are misconceptions in the industry. There are half-baked agile
Hmm.
uh,
Hmm. Hmm.
thing. There are interpreted versions of agile, interpreted versions of scrum, you know different versions. Everybody's trying to do something or the other, cook their own story, cook their own food. So 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 I kind of have complaints against it. I'm a little irritated because of that, but I think that's the way the industry is. How much can,
Yes.
right? So yeah.
Yeah.
So go ahead, please.
Yeah, yeah. So, like I said, I mean, now industry is also like industry is built by the companies. Now, the companies, most of the time, companies are also there to make profits, and their profits will only come when they are sticking by what their customers or clients are saying. So, like, it's a complete chain, I would say. So, I mean,
Not
even if the
most of the
company
time,
is
all
trying
the
to,
time. Not most of the
yes.
time on profit. Yeah.
Yes, yes, yes. So what happens is that even if the, like I said, like the management and leadership, probably the subordinate people or the core technical people might not be aware of such processes or these kind of things, maybe. But even if the management or these people are aware of it, they might not have the budget to implement it fully, like the actual or the proper version of it. They might not have the budget or they might not have the resources to do that. So what happens is like a hodgepodge kind of a thing in between. So that's what.
All right. Enough of talking about testing and agile. And so I want to take this to my favorite segment, the rapid fire, where I ask you a few questions and you have just 5 seconds to think of the answer. And if it's a multiple choice, then you have to tell me why you are picking that choice. Okay. So
Okay.
question number one, Durgapur or Kolkata?
Kolkata.
You have to tell why.
Okay, so better opportunities in terms of living. Now, Durgapur is my hometown, so I am not shying away from that to say that okay, it's a small town, I won't go back there. No, no, not like that. It's because being in Kolkata, being a capital of a whole state has its own advantages. Like I have access, and also it is like the British capital, so obviously it has a good number of places to visit, quite many historical places, and also a much better number of opportunities as compared to Durgapur. So that is one thing. So if I have if I have a place to stay here and do the stuff like that, then obviously I'll choose to stay here because I mean everybody wants security in their life, security in terms of so that they can ultimately do something to earn their livelihood. So that chances are better in a big metro city than in a small industrial town.
I was hoping you would also mention food.
Food is okay. So now food is you get every type of food and every type of people also in Kolkata. So that is
Yeah.
also
So
one thing.
yeah. So I was hoping that you would include food as one of the things. And when I talk about cities and towns and everybody then brings up something like that. I remember I was interviewing. I think it was Gaurav Khurana. I don't remember. No, it was Mahesh Chikne, the founder of Test Drive, and he started his career journey from Hyderabad. And
Okay.
and and, and even though he was in Hyderabad, he didn't speak so highly of the biryani. So so it's like so these kind of interesting conversations. Uh, and I by now everybody knows that I'm a foodie. I like to eat all kinds of cuisines, national, international, doesn't matter. And in India, there is so much variety. They say that every 100 kilometers, the cuisine, the culture, the clothes, change.
Change.
And there is so much variety. And India, if you go from north to south, or you go from north
you're coming down from north and then you go to the west and then come back and then go to the east and then go back again up north, cover the entire country sort of, you will taste more than 1,000 cuisines. You know,
Obviously.
there is so much food to offer. You know, the ingredients may be the same, but the variety of output, the net result that you will get is extraordinary.
Different. Yes.
All right. So now for my next question. So this is not a rapid fire question. This is just a precursor to that question. Has Kolkata opened up after COVID? Is it all open
Yes,
or?
like most of the things are open, and it is also like floating around in the news that maybe the schools will also open after this Durga Puja, which has already begun. So it's it's in
Okay.
news, and metro buses, everything are open.
Okay. So now that cities are opening up, this is a rapid fire question. Now that cities are opening up, which place would you like to go?
What have to think? Ah, okay, so with Durga Puja around the corner, and it has also started, so I would like to visit some famous like pandals for the idol, and there are like number of famous. Like, how can I name one of them? So there are a number of them. So if I get a chance, I would like to see at least three, four of them. So how they are doing after the COVID, how they are managing things, and how are the idols, what are the themes, etc. So yeah, one okay, this may sound like a promotion or something, but I'm not doing any promotion kind of a thing. So in one place in Lake Town, there is a place which they have done, I think the Burj Khalifa theme they have done. So that is all in the news now. So I was hoping if I could see it once at least. But this is
Right.
not a promotion, I would like to point out.
No, that's absolutely fine. No, I mean, Kolkata is of course famous for its Durga Puja and the variety of themes that they bring in. So I was a little curious, which is your favorite kind of. So you mentioned Lake Town, you want to go there. You know, I certainly do hope that you enjoy that and share some pictures with us as to how it is. And I'm also curious. I also heard about it, about the Burj Khalifa theme, and excited. I can't go, of course, but will be interesting to see what they come up with. And so
If I get
it's just what, 2 more days for the puja to begin?
no. So today is Panchami, no. So Panchami, I mean, puja starts from the Mahalaya even. So Mahalaya was 5 days back. So today is Panchami. So tomorrow is Shashti.
Yes. Okay, so yeah, we are already in the middle of Durga Puja. So,
Yes.
all right, the last question for rapid fire. If there was a city in the entire world that you would want to visit, which one would that be and why?
Hmm. I am like I don't know the name, so I can't quote the name. But some city in some Nordic country, so Nordic or Scandinavian country. I don't know the city name, so I am like I'm not
Okay,
mentioning anything.
Scandinavia. Let's say Sweden, Finland, Norway, Denmark. Okay.
Yes. So Nordic countries, yeah, some city in the Nordic countries because of the landscapes and their those natural beauties and uh, so those kind of those things only.
Yeah,
That
so
is,
maybe
and also the Nordic folklore things like Celtic folklores, etc. So,
so yeah, maybe Stockholm or Oslo or Copenhagen or one of
yes.
those. Or maybe in and around those cities, because cities generally have buildings, not much to see. It's the outskirts that have the landscape. Cities mostly will have buildings. What to see in buildings, right? So if you go in the countryside,
Countrysides.
a lot of all right, great. So you did quite well. I unfortunately, like Karan Johar, I don't have a gift hamper for you. So maybe I should introduce something, e-gift, e-voucher or something like that. Some sort of
That will be nice.
hamper, something I should introduce. So I have to start thinking about it. Well, so I want to go back a little bit into our testing discussion, and so with the current trend that is on in the industry, where do you see testing going in the next few years, and how do you think testers should prepare for that change?
Hmm. So one thing, like we are having this, everything is moving to cloud, and then like automating stuff, and then so the two things is like obviously the technical knowledge and also the domain knowledge, technical knowledge plus domain knowledge should be handy, and things like cloud knowledge, and then some deployment amount of knowledge. So those things can be done, and also data. Now data knowledge, it's not like writing some select like small select queries, no, not like that, like much more than that. So obviously a good amount of data knowledge should be there, because uh, like we say now that data is the new oil, so like that. So data is going to be there, and every decision is going to be data made, because no one is going to believe what one says out of just lot of life. So if everything is backed by data, then it is a valid thing. So obviously data knowledge is important not only to testers but also to everyone, because like now data knowledge, it has like different implications for for people in different industries. So for testers, it can be like which areas can may have more defects on like the insights which we can draw from the data. If we know how to interpret data and how to visualize data, then we do not need to depend, as testers we will not need to depend on some other like data person to do that visualization or do that analysis for us. We can do that. So we can do those things by ourselves, and then get to know that okay, we need to test this area more because this is a critical area. I mean the customers are using this more, like those things.
I think those are some really good insights, and especially your impetus on data science. Now, that also helps you in analyzing your test results as well, right?
Yes,
After you
obviously.
run a test, after you run a test, more a lot of times, you know, it's not the pass fail result that matters. What matters is what happened to the system, or what
Hmm.
logs were generated. What do the logs tell me, or what happened to the system after that test was run? Yeah,
Yes,
so
yes,
you get a
yes.
lot of data and you have to look into it and see, okay,
Hmm.
how can I, if I have found something nice, then what does it mean for the business? Or if I found something anomalous,
Alarming, yes.
yeah, then what is it exactly? So so that aspect. Now here's one question that I wanted to ask you. Okay, so I see a lot of testers reaching out to me and asking me, can I become a Scrum Master? Can
Hmm.
I have like 5, 6, 8, 10 years of experience. Can I become a Scrum Master? Can I become a business analyst? Can I become this? Can I become that? What is wrong with testing? Why does everybody want to go out of testing and do something else? What are your
Yes.
thoughts?
Yes, yes. So I completely understand what where that comes from, is because normally or most of the times what happens is testers are those people who are not that much adept at coding and not so technically sound. So now since testing, like after a certain time you have to get into the technical side of things in testing. So for that matter, people want to just move out of that field and get into a little bit of a business kind of a thing. Just, I mean, it may sound harsh, but that is the true, like an escape path or something like that. I mean, it is the harsh truth, because whatever fancy word we use to sugarcoat things and then present in the interview, but ultimately the harsh truth is because see, I'm not that good in technology, so please let me do the business side of it. So that is one thing. And also it's not it's not a, I mean, okay, so this is one thing that can be there. Another thing can also be the own interest. Now a person might be doing something, but he or she is actually interested in something else. So those kind of interests may also spark these type of changes. It's not always, like quite a few number of times it is because of that escaping mindset, But sometimes it is like a real interest that okay, I understand the domain better, or I understand the business better more than I like to do testing, or more than I like to get into like coding and technical side of things. I like to do this thing better. So these things can also play, so this point can also play a role in that. So it's nothing like wrong. It's upon like person's interest also sometimes.
So do you think automation is the only way a tester can upskill? Is
Automation, no. Sorry, I did not get. Can you repeat once?
is automation the only solution for a tester to grow as in his career or her career?
No, I would say no. But sadly, like in the very beginning, like I said, that the situation, every time the situation or market situation is very much like supply and demand driven. So now the demand is for automation. The companies want automation. So right now, if you ask me now, yes, the only skill that a tester can upskill is or grow in the career is by knowing how to automate stuff. So right now, but in the bigger picture probably it is not, because there are other like hundreds of other things where a tester can go. He or she might become like a domain specialist like I said, or he or she might go into a like go into some business kind of a role, or maybe some managerial kind of role, like overlooking the entire product, knowing what to do, knowing the setting the goals for the company, for the product itself. So these things, but again, it is market, and to fill in the demands, everyone is just filling in the demand.
Right. And that's probably why, people who have difficulties in coding, or as they say that they don't like coding. A lot of testers, if you ask them, they will not tell you that they have difficulty or a challenge in coding. What they will tell you is, I don't like it. So the underlying meaning is that there is some sort of a difficulty. Okay.
Hmm.
In many cases, I'm
Hmm.
not saying for everybody, but in many cases, the underlying fact is that, it makes them uncomfortable. But there are people who actually genuinely have tried hands on coding, they don't like it. Okay. You know, People have really tried, got their hands dirty, done it for a few years, and then this is boring.
Not my type. Yes.
There are people like that. Okay. There are people
Hmm.
who have got testing, done it for a few years, and think, oh, not my cup of tea.
Hmm.
So this happens in all professions. Okay. I have seen business analysts, after doing that business analyst kind of a role for like 6 7 years, they're like, I find this boring. I need some excitement in my life. so what more excitement can you get? Okay, you then they get into more challenging things like, okay, sales and marketing, and go in that direction. That I say that as challenging because it's challenging for me. Okay, I am a very bad salesman. Okay, I'll probably if it comes to bargaining, I'll probably never do it. Okay, so I never try to bargain. Okay. Whatever price if somebody tells me, like, okay, done, let's do it. Okay, so that's one of the flaws that I have. So that's why I think of marketing as sales as scary, but it may not be true for everybody else. So those are the kind of options. And when we talk about career options, for testers, within testing there is a lot of opportunity, because there is
Hmm.
now a technical side of things. You can grow as an SDET, a technical architect in that direction. Okay, SDET, then SDET 2, SDET 3, principal SDET, or whatever.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
You can go
Hmm.
in that direction. That's one easy career option for you. If you don't like to be in the technical side of things, if you're like, that's too technical for me, and still you want to be a, in a testing situation, you can of course become a test coach. You can coach the rest of your team on testing. You can coach the rest of your organization on testing. Yeah, right. So you can do those kind of roles as well. You can become a test consultant. Okay, and work with different organization, helping them solve their problems. So there are opportunities as testers. However, it is the the reality that a lot of testers are either don't see those opportunities or are limited by the opportunities in their work environment. So their companies may not have roles like that. So that's why they are forced to think, okay, what can I do next? Shall I go into business analysis? Shall I go into, you know, agile scrum? Or shall I go into something else? DevOps is a new hot thing. A lot of people keep asking me, okay, I'm a QA, how can I become DevOps? I'm like, you cannot become DevOps. Okay, DevOps is a culture. DevOps is, so you can be a part of DevOps and you can do a lot of things. You can pick up automation. You can develop expertise in certain tool sets. You can become an expert in, building pipelines and so on and so forth. Okay, and for that you need additional skills. You need to understand the culture aspect of it. You need to understand the infrastructure aspect of it. You need to understand the engineering aspect, because there are these three pieces that DevOps entails, and a lot of times we understand that and they just see some designation there, okay, DevOps engineer or DevOps, which is, in my opinion, which is
Very
rubbish.
false. Yes.
Rubbish.
You have to know. So for
Sorry.
anything that yeah, so what I'm saying is for anything that you are doing, you have to know what that is, whether that is a tool or whether that is a language, whether that is a culture. So what it is, like everything is not same. Like even I had this concept. I mean that at some point I had this concept like Cucumber is a tool. Sorry, BDD is a tool and Cucumber is probably something related to that kind of a conception I had. Now, how wrong I was, that I realized by a post from that I saw on LinkedIn. At that point, I realized that okay, no, this is nowhere a tool. This is not even a T of a tool. This is just a process. So okay, fine.
No, yeah, it's, see, you said very early in your in this discussion that being having that urge to learn and to understand that, okay, there are things outside of your current knowledge area, and then be open to feedback. If somebody is telling you, you know what, this is not the right thing and this is the right thing, be open to that. I think that is key, and you mentioned it very early, and that's why I want the testers to focus on the points that you made, because you made some very good points, uh, which make absolute sense, even if it is a fresher or if it's an experienced person, doesn't matter. It is an equally good advice for both freshers and experienced people, trying to
Thank
communicate,
you.
trying to collaborate, trying to accept feedback, trying to always keep learning, these kind of things that you've said. I mean, absolutely delighted to hear those. And this is something, that really will help the community in a long way if they follow your advice. So great to have you on the show. I mean, excellent discussion. Um,
Thank you.
there's so much this conversation. I mean, we have been talking for quite some time. So
Yeah.
if time was not a bottleneck, I would have continued. But but obviously, like I have been talking in many episodes and saying to a lot of testers, we need a chapter 2, to continue the conversations that we have begun. So obviously, I will look forward to a chapter 2 with you as well, because there's a lot to learn from you. Okay, and
Yes.
you are a very active participant in the testnet community that helps a lot of testers. You have a voice that you bring out, and you've helped inspire a lot of testers. I feel good when I read your comments. I learn a lot from
Thank
it.
you.
So continue doing what you're doing, and it was indeed an absolute delight to talk to you today.
Yeah, same on my side.
I like the simplicity and the humility as well.
Keep that going.
Humility is the base of knowledge. Like actual knowledge does not make you proud, it makes you humble. Like the more knowledge you gain, you understand like there is an ocean out there which you don't know.
Excellent point. Excellent point. So
And
we
that
will
I believe, and that I felt, and that I believe totally.
Absolutely. And we will end this discussion on that note. It was a wonderful episode. Thank you so much, Rupsha, for your time this
Thank
morning.
you.
And it
Thank
was a
you.
pleasure talking to you today.
Thank you. Bye.